Hi, I'm Chief Meteorologist Tony Petrarca in the Pinpoint 12 Forecast Center. You've clicked on the Weather Now link on this Thursday evening, almost 9:45, looking at new data. Everything coming together, unfortunately, for a high-impact storm during the overnight and into Friday. It's primarily a significant wind and rain storm, and on the backside of it, it will turn sharply colder. We'll switch over to some scattered snow showers, but here's the breakdown. Rainfall amounts anywhere from 1 to 3 inches of rain, but we're thinking more like 2 to 3 inches of rain, and the wind is the bigger concern here, with gusts of 50 to 65 miles per hour overnight into the pre-dawn hours and into Friday. Those strongest winds being realized along the south shore, but windy everywhere and damaging wind risk. Localized street flooding, power outages, and some coastal flooding. First, the high wind warning for the areas in red. It's all of southeastern New England. It actually goes into effect 1 o'clock in the morning, so just after midnight through all of Friday night, and into early Saturday morning. Over the border in Connecticut, it is a wind advisory. Still a high impact wind there, but the gusts over in Connecticut between roughly 40 and 55 miles per hour. So gusts in that red zone, in that red area, which is pretty much where we are. It's likely that we'll see some scattered wind damage and some power outages. And that risk, based on some of the information that we've been looking at, I would call it a moderate to high risk of power outages by Friday morning. These gusts of 50 to 65, initially out of the south and then turning generally south, actually west-southwest during the late afternoon and early evening for all areas. The other concern here, and we don't want to discard this at all, is the coastal flood warning. At the time of the early morning high tide. Here's the issue. We already have an abnormally high astronomical tide, which is already going to be high regardless of whether or not we were getting a storm, but obviously we are getting a storm. And with a strong onshore wind, it just kind of pushes the water towards the coast, kind of piling it up a little bit. So we've got a 1 to 2 foot surge on top of the already abnormally high tide. So there's the risk of at least moderate flooding. And that it does include the communities up Narragansett and Buzzards Bay as well. And this is for the early morning high tide between 7 and 9 a.m. So the storm impacts, heavy rain, strong, damaging wind, and power outages. That risk is high. As far as the flooding due to either heavy rain, localized street flooding, or the coastal flooding due to the abnormally high tide, that is at least a moderate risk. And the other thing is this huge temperature plunge that we're going to see on Friday. So here's the breakdown. Early in the morning, we may be close to 60 degrees, but with the approach of a strong cold front, watch how these numbers just nosedive down into the upper 20s by actually mid to upper 20s by 8 o'clock in the evening. We're going to have to watch to see if the pavement dries out in time before the temperatures really fall below freezing. We're setting up for a frigid Friday night. Could be some icy spots, but right now we're thinking most of the pavement should dry out, but do check back with us. We're going to see some scattered snow showers Friday night as well. So our threat tracker this evening is low, but during the overnight and into Friday, it remains high, and then Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, back to low with the dry conditions. But satellite and radar composite showing the rain working in right now, area of low pressure that will intensify across the Great Lakes, and this clash of cold and mild air, and you can see the huge temperature difference, and that's what these storms feed on. And it's this outbreak of cold air. These are the actual air temperatures, not the wind chills. This surge of cold is going to rush in here Friday evening and Friday night and set up over the holiday weekend. Both Saturday and Christmas Sunday look frigid. So we take this into the future, and it's a windswept, heavy rain and very warm early on Friday morning. This is around 6 a.m. Very strong winds, damaging winds at this time. And then we'll get into a little bit of a lull, and then with the cold front approaching early in the afternoon, we'll get a second round right in here of very heavy rain and some strong wind. And then behind that, the colder air. Watch as the cold front sweeps offshore early Friday evening, Friday night, a rush of cold air settling in. And Friday evening, Friday night, especially along the south shore, there'll be some snow showers that'll be confined to the immediate coastline. Wouldn't surprise me if the ground actually gets coated down along the coast Friday night into early Saturday morning. Look at this huge temperature drop. Now, here we are in the morning at 7 a.m., close to 60. You see this wedge of warm air doesn't last long. The approach to the Arctic cold front, and here it comes Friday, late day Friday and Friday evening. And then as it sweeps through, that rush of cold air and the rapidly falling temperatures. Look at the numbers. By 11 o'clock in the evening, it's down to 18 with a wind chill close to 0. A lot of rain now through Friday on the order of 2.5 inches of rain. Could be some locally higher amounts. as we get in real close here, and we'll take it into the overnight and pre-dawn hours. This is Friday. This is pre-dawn Friday, 1 o'clock in the morning. Heavy rain, strong wind. Here we are at 7 o'clock in the morning, 7 a.m. Very mild, very windy with downpours, damaging wind gusts. By 2 o'clock in the afternoon, this is when the cold front is approaching. We're still in the 50s, but then watch the huge temperature drop by Friday evening and Friday night. 6 o'clock in the evening, it's down to the mid to upper 20s, and it's down into the teens by Friday night at 11 o'clock. And right along the South Shore, there'll be some persistent, what we call ocean effect snow showers, just confined to this area. You go north of, say, North Kingstown, it's dry. But could lay down a coating to an inch of snow overnight along like Route 1 along the South Shore. Stormy Friday morning, scattered wind damage, outages, temperatures upper 50s to low 60s, a windswept heavy rain. And then during the early afternoon, another round of wind and heavy rain during the early afternoon. And then once the cold front sweeps through, you see by 6 o'clock in the evening, the temperatures really drop off with some scattered snow showers. And this does set up for a windy, frigid, but mainly dry Christmas weekend, both Saturday and into Christmas Sunday. You definitely want to tune into further forecasts on our website, WPRI.com. During our late evening news at 10 and 11, you want to check in with Michelle bright and early on 12 News this morning, starting at 4:30 a.m., and she'll have updates as well.